The Bradley Beal trade is really weird. He was on a contract that had a no trade clause, so not only did he have to approve of the team that he was being traded to, but he also had to approve of the package that he was being traded for. So if the Wizards were demanding a ton of assets to trade Bradley Beal to Phoenix, Bradley Beal could say, no, Phoenix is giving up too much. I don't want to go to a team that has to give up all of those assets. I would rather them have those assets when I get there, so I'm not going to allow this trade. This pretty much handcuffed Washington because they weren't really able to get back what many would consider even close to similar value in return for what they gave up. In fact, they actually ended up having to give up a player that I consider to be a relatively valuable asset in Jordan Goodwin, but more on that later. The reason I'm not a huge fan of this trade is because, one, the Wizards didn't get great return on what they had to give up, and two, the Suns only really got marginally better. Now, I understand that second reason might ruffle some feathers, but I'll explain. Is Bradley Beal an immediate upgrade over Chris Paul? Yes, unquestionably. However, the Suns didn't address one of their main concerns that we saw during the postseason, which was their depth. Their starting lineup is going to consist of Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, DeAndre Ayton, and whoever fills that fifth spot. And it's going to hinge a lot on who they bring back in the offseason, but even then they're going to be limited on who they can sign in free agency. And this is because they're in a really tough situation as far as their salary cap goes. Next year, they're going to be paying Beal, Book, KD, and Ayton a combined $162,866,661. These four players are going to be making more money than the entire payroll of 24 NBA teams. Needless to say, Phoenix isn't going to be an option for anybody wanting anything more than an MLE or a minimum contract. But let's address the actual fit though, which really is the most important thing here. We've seen teams aggregate as much star talent as they can, but the results have varied. One thing I will say about these three players is that the fit really isn't as bad as some people have made it out to be. I've seen some say that all three of these guys need the ball in their hands to be successful, and I'm not sure that I fully agree with that. We know that both Durant and Booker can be fantastic off ball because they've had to do it at different points throughout their entire careers so far. But there's this misconception that Beal isn't able to play off ball, and I have no idea where that came from. In fact, just look at his 2020 through 2021 season where he almost won the scoring title on the second best efficiency of his career, and he made the playoffs. Who was he playing next to? Russell Westbrook. Even though Beal was the main guy on that team, Westbrook was far and away the lead ball handler for them. He led the team in time of possession, touches per game, average seconds per touch. Basically every single metric to determine who was the lead ball handler for them points to the fact that Russell Westbrook was dominating their time of possession and Beal was doing a lot off ball, and it's clear that he was successful doing it. He wasn't just doing a good job of fitting in an off-ball role, he was excelling in it. So if the question is whether or not Beal can handle a tertiary role behind Durant and Booker, then the answer is overwhelmingly yes. All we need to do is look at what Kevin Durant and Devin Booker were doing together during the playoffs. Look at this play from the Denver series, for example. Kevin Durant's bringing the ball up the floor and Book comes over as if he's going to screen for Durant. He's instead going to ghost the screen, leaving Gordon doubled on KD, and Booker attacks the paint once he gets the pass before Gordon can even make the recovery, and it generates an uncontested look at the rim. This possession from the Clippers series really highlights their two-man game. Craig passes to Booker, and Booker immediately attacks baseline before kicking it out to KD. This leads to an advantage when Russ bites on the pump fake, forcing Zubac to step up as the help defender, leaving Booker free on the baseline for the dump off, and Booker knocks down the floater. But stop and look at when Booker gets the ball. Batum was forced to step up on him, and this leaves Kawhi to rotate onto Ayton. That results in Craig being left open over on the wing. Now, I don't dislike Booker taking this shot here, but imagine if you put Bradley Beal over there on the wing instead of Craig. The prospect of this offense with three versatile scoring threats that can create off the catch is a really exciting thought. Something that's really important with these three guys playing together now is that they don't miss easy reads. They can occasionally rely on tough shot making, something that we saw in the Denver series. And while we know that these guys are good enough to make those tough shots like Booker does here, If they're in a situation in the future where it's Beal in that corner instead of Landry Shamet, they've got to be able to make that pass. Similarly here, yes, Durant does get it to Booker, but they're going to be able to create a lot of high percentage looks if Booker can find a Bradley Beal in the corner here, since Terrence Mann is digging towards Book. It could allow Beal to get an easy corner three, or allow him to attack off the catch and further develop their advantages on this possession. A big kicker in this trade, though, is the fact that somehow the Wizards agreed to send Jordan Goodwin to Phoenix, and to me, this is by far the most underrated aspect of this trade for the Suns. I have been a big fan of Jordan Goodwin's game since last year, and I actually was advocating for teams in need of a backup point guard to try and make a deal for him prior to the trade deadline last year. One of his primary draws is his defense, because even though he's a 6'3" guard, he's got a 6'10" wingspan, and it allows him to play a lot bigger than he actually is on the defensive end. He can guard big men posting up, using that length to disrupt entry passes to force turnovers, and he's really good at reading pick and rolls, knowing that Capella's roll to the rim is almost certainly leading to a lob, so he decides to tag the roll, and he's able to get his hand on the ball, and it leads to the Wizards getting possession. He's great at navigating off-ball actions, recognizing the down screen from Zubac to try and generate a look for Kennard, but you can see him angle his body and take a wider step outside of the range of Zubac's screen, so he can get to the ball and get the steal. Here, Jovic is screening him to get Hero a look in the corner, but he's going to be able to spin off of the screen and read the kick out from Bam, and he nabs the ball away. Additionally, he's just a really solid on-ball defender. He doesn't really get beat a whole lot, he's able to make himself a lot wider than he is due to that wingspan, and he has fast hands to poke the ball away and generate transition opportunities. And I also think he's going to bring more to the table on the offensive end than people realize. His efficiency at a glance doesn't look great, but he shot 70% at the rim last year, and he showcased a reliable floater game. If his three-point shooting can reach a more respectable number, his ability to knock down open looks and score in these opportunities that come off of the gravity that the three other guys have, then he should have no problem as a supplementary scoring option. Where I get excited with him though is his passing game. He's really good at playmaking off the catch, which is something that's going to be really important when you're playing next to three prolific scorers. He doesn't need to have the ball in his hands for a large chunk of the shot clock or take a dozen dribbles to find an open man. He's also a really crafty pick and roll passer. He's very patient when he's probing the paint and trying to get the defense to bite on him, and when they do, he's able to hit the roll man for easy lobs. He can also penetrate the defense effectively and force help defense down low, leading to kickouts like this for open shooters. This kind of possession here shows me the potential of Goodwin having success playing alongside these three stars. Gafford and Goodwin are in this empty corner pick and roll, and the Spurs are going to blitz Goodwin off of the screen. Gafford's roll draws the weak side help, and the 45 cut is going to remove the coverage on the corner pass, and it generates an open look for Kispert in the corner. He's going to allow them to get easy looks, and when the pressure is on the big three, Goodwin can alleviate some of that and handle things in small doses. Everyone's hung up on the fact that the Suns don't have a point guard anymore, but that's not entirely true. Goodwin should be able to fill that role when they need him to, and the fact of the matter is that Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal are all three very capable passers and playmakers in their own right. They're definitely going to be operating under more of a playmaking by committee mentality with a more egalitarian approach that doesn't require one person being the offensive engine, but that doesn't mean it can't work. The problem to me isn't whether or not these guys can play together. The question to me is whether or not they're going to be able to flesh out their depth enough to weather any potential injuries or the minutes where they can't have their optimal big three in at once. Now, Brian Windhorst did say that they're looking to bring back Torrey Craig, Josh Okogie, Bismack Biyombo, and Jock Landale. These guys are decent supporting players, and it's going to be super important that Phoenix is able to bring them back. My concern relates partially to their depth, but it ties more into their defense as a whole. Booker has taken major strides defensively, and I was actually really impressed by the damage he was doing defensively during the playoffs. Durant is a capable defender for sure, but even if Chris Paul wasn't doing a whole lot for them on defense, Bradley Beal's not going to be doing a whole lot either. So this trade really seems like a big bet on their offense. While this trade is a clear improvement over Chris Paul and Landry Shamet, the question I keep coming back to is, does this make them better than the Denver Nuggets? Because that's the team that they're going to have to go through to get to the finals and ultimately win a championship. It's certainly possible, But I don't think that the last step in the process for them is this Bradley Beal trade. I think there's still more work to be done. Huge thank you to all of my patrons for helping make these videos possible. If you enjoyed the video and you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing and leaving a like. That's the #1 way to support me and help me continue making content. Regardless, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.